So we will be covering classes and constructors. Um, so classes are special functions in JavaScript. You can use the same expressions to define a class as you would use to define a function in JavaScript. The classes aren't directly used by program, but by creating objects, you can use the objects to access the class. These objects are used to achieve different tasks that you desire in the program. So in simplest terms, classes are used to create objects. Let's look at a simple example real quickly. Let me open up Visual Studio Code. Actually, I will go to the JS fiddle. And I'm going to clear this out from the last example. Let me clear this out. So let's take an example of pets. If we were to store information about all our pets, how would I do it, right? Let's say I have 3 dogs and 2 cats. How would I define this information inside the program? Let's consider dog for a moment. What are the properties of my dogs, right? They have, first of all, let's write in what they have. They have name. They have age. They have breed. And they have color. Now, what do dogs normally like to do? So, what do they do? Dogs like to run. They like to bark. They can fetch things, and they like to jump. Okay, so to have this information of dogs, I'll create objects to store this information, but about properties are similar to all dogs, right? So we create an object for each dog, and then we can update the properties and methods for this object. Let's actually write some code to understand this better. I'm going to comment this out. So comment this out real quick. And let me make some space here. Alright, like I mentioned earlier, you can use the same expression to define a class as you'd use to define a function in JavaScript. We create a class by using the class keyword followed by the name of the class you want to create. So in this case, we'll say class dog. Okay, this is a class definition. Now every class has an initializer function called a constructor, and it is run only once during the life of the objects when the object is created. So let's define this constructor inside the class. So let me make some space here. I'll say constructor, and I'll define a function. So let me actually log something out and show you something real quick. Log this out. I'll say hello from the constructor. Okay, now let's create an object and see the constructor in action. So the way we create object is we type in a variable, we give it a name, so I'll say dog1, and we create an instance of this dog right here. So we want to create a new instance of this, so I'm going to say new dog, and I'm going to follow it by parentheses because I want to create a new instance. So I'm going to be running this constructor right here. So if I save this, I'm going to see hello from the constructor. What this means is that the dog1 object has been initialized for the class dog. Okay, now that we have understood what the constructor does, let's add the properties that all dogs have in common. We'll add this inside the constructor. So we will say in here, we'll say this dot name and the value. So let's for now say Tommy. Okay, And let's add the other properties. Let's say age. So let's say Tommy is 1 year old. Say Tommy is of the breed golden retriever. I'm just going to use the single quotes here instead of double quotes. I don't like using double quotes. I'm going to be using this dot color. So color is obviously, let's say, golden. Okay, this here refers to the object that is being created by the class. So let's save this and check the console now. And let's actually log this out. Let's log something out right here real quick. So in this case, I will log out dog1. So I get the value for dog1, right? We see all the properties for dog1. So now if you create instance for a second dog, say dog2, say var dog2, and create a new instance. In this case, what do you think will be the answer? Let me save this, and I get the same dog information. But what if the dog2 had different properties, right? So let's say if it were a black Labrador, we still get the same information as dog1, which means the age, breed, color will not match with dog2's properties. So we need to have the user properties to be user defined, then hard code them inside the constructor of our class. So to do this, you need to pass in the properties of every dog at the instance creation. So we'll have to do something like this. So for dog2, we have to pass in something right here. So we'll have to say Max. The name is Max. You have to pass in the age. You have to pass in the breed. So let's say it's a black Labrador. And let's say the color is black. Okay. Now to make sure that this object is created with these properties, we need to make changes to our constructor method, because if you see, the constructor method has the values hard-coded. We need this method to accept arguments or parameters. So let's just say name, age, breed, and color. So these are the same values that I've entered right here, right? And instead of putting in the hard-coded values, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say name, age. I'm going to remove this and say breed, and I'm going to remove this and say color. There we go. Now let's save this and run. Okay, I get an error here. What kind of error am I getting? I'm getting error because this is empty. So let me quickly add here the name, Tommy. Let's say the age is 1. It's oh, these are strings, by the way. That's one of the errors that I'm getting, I think. So I'm going to add golden retriever, and the color is, let's say, golden, and I'm going to just save it. Alright, I just have dog1 logged out. Let me log out the dog2 as well. I'll say dog2, save it. Now I get the 2 information. That's great. Now let's say for the instance method we define them inside the class. Okay, so let's say we want to make the dogs go for a run, bark, fetch, or jump. So we can write functions. So let's say I'm going to write a function right inside this class. So I'm going to say function run, and in here I'm going to say console dot log, and I'm going to say the name of the dog. So this dot name plus is running. Wait. Oh, I don't need to use a function right here, the function keyword, because it's a method from within the class. So I don't need to do that. So let me just quickly log this out. Instead of dog1 and dog2, let's say console.log. Oh, we don't need to log this out because we already have a console.log inside the run. So I'm just gonna say let the dog1 run. So let's Tommy run. Let the Tommy run. So let's say dog1.run, and I'm going to just save it, and it says Tommy's running. Okay, I need a space in here. Alright, great, Tommy's running. So if I wanted to make sure to make the max run, so I would say dog2.run, max is running. So great, this is what classes and constructors are. So let's have a quick overview of new JavaScript functions. So set timeout. Set timeout calls a function or evaluates an expression after a specified number of milliseconds. So one of the examples is, let me quickly remove this. Oops. Let me quickly remove this code. Oh, my mistake. We clear out the console. And a good example of set timeout will be, so let's say set timeout. And inside I'm going to pass in a function with a console.log hello. And I'm going to run it after 3000 milliseconds. So if I save this, I get this after 3 seconds, right? So if I run this, you see how much time it takes for this to log out. There it is. So the next method that we want to look at is set interval. Set interval method calls a function or evaluates an expression in a specified interval. So again, it's in milliseconds. So let's say if you want to display the time, so what I will do is so you want to display the clock. This is a very interesting use case, by the way. So let's say I'll declare a variable. I'll say my variable equals set interval, and I'm going to pass in a function that I haven't not created yet, but I'm going to just call it time, and I'm going to display it every 1 second. Right, so let me write this function real quickly. So I'll say function of time, and inside this I have to create a date object. So I will just say variable d equals new date object, and I'm going to get the local time in the local string format. So I'm going to say variable time equals d.to locale string, and I'm just going to log this out. So I'm going to say console.log and t, and I'm going to just run this. So you see right here, I get the time. Excellent. Callbacks. In simple terms, a callback is a function that is to be executed after another function has finished executing, hence the term callback. Let's look at some regular functions first. So I have two functions, function first and function second, and I call them right after I define them. So now, as you would expect, let me first run this real quick. So as you'd expect, the function first is executed first and function second is executed second. But what if first function contains some sort of code that can be executed immediately? For example, an API request where we have to send the request and then wait for a response. JavaScript runs code sequentially in top-down order. However, there are some cases that code must run after something else has happened and not sequentially. This is called asynchronous programming. Callbacks make sure that a function is not going to be run before a task is completed, but will run right after the task is completed. So in JavaScript, the way to create a callback function is to pass it as a parameter to another function, and then to call it back right after something has happened or some task has been completed. So let us see how this works. We'll be using the set timeout method we learned a while ago. So let me write this real quick. So I'll say constant message and create a function. I'll log something out. Okay, console. And I'm going to run this function after, let's say 5 seconds. Okay, and let me write the set timeout. And in here, I'm going to pass this function right here. So message, and execute it after 5,000 milliseconds. So if I run this, so it appears after 5 seconds. The message is being called after something has happened. So after 5 seconds has passed, for example, in this example, but not before. So the message function is simply an example of a callback function. Okay, so let us go back. So promises. Promises are very important in JavaScript. Make sure you understand this very thoroughly, because you will be using this in advanced JavaScript, and especially in various JavaScript frameworks such as Node.js, as well as the front-end frameworks such as Angular. Promise is commonly defined as a proxy for a value that will eventually become available. So imagine you're a kid and your dad promises you that he will take you camping next week. So now you don't know if you'll go to the camping. Your dad can take you camping, or he might not take you camping because he might be busy, right? So that's a promise. A promise has 3 states. So let me go back in here real quick and open up the console. So a promise has 3 states. The first is pending. The next one is fulfilled. And the last one is rejected. Okay, so pending is that you don't know if you'll go to camping. Fulfilled means your dad takes you to camping because he's not busy. Okay, the not busy is a condition that we have to check. The rejected, that means your dad does not take you to camping because he's busy, right? So let's write some code for this. Let's codify this. So I'll just clear this console out, and I'll declare a variable to see if dad is busy. So I'll say is dad busy. So currently he's not busy. And let me create a new promise. So this is how you create a new promise. I'll declare a variable, take me camping, and this will either be fulfilled or not fulfilled. Will take me camping, this promise. So I'll say new promise, and inside this we pass in a function. So I'll say function resolve reject. Okay, so just ignore this, I just accidentally pressed enter right here. In this we have to see if dad is busy. So I'll say if dad is busy. So I'll say if dad is not busy, and in here I'm going to, if that is not busy, then we are going camping, right? So I'll create a object for camping, which will have all the information about camping. So I'll say where we are going. So let's say we are going into the state of Wisconsin. The time, say we are going at 10 a.m. The day, say we're going on Sunday, and that is it. Okay, now since that is not busy, we are definitely going to camping. So I'm just going to resolve this request. That means the request has been fulfilled. So resolve camping. So that means the request has been fulfilled. And if that is busy, then we have to give a reason because that is busy. So I'll just say var reason equals new error. I'm just going to throw an error, and the reason is that is busy. And I'm going to reject this with the reason. So which means we are not going to camping. Okay. So this is how we create a promise. And if I now see if will that take me camping, the promise is resolved because dad is not busy, and that's why we're going, right? But what if dad is busy? So if I say and I create this again, then I get an error. I get an error saying that dad is busy, so we are not going camping today. Great. Let's go back. Async and await is special syntax to work with promises in a much more easier fashion. Uh, this is a way of defining the promises and handling the reject and resolve. You won't be covering this in detail because this is still an introduction to JavaScript, but as we move on to the advanced level, we'll definitely go in detail for async and await. So closure. A closure is a function that has access to its outer function scope even after the outer function has returned. Okay, so what does that mean? So let me go back here real quick, clear this out, and explain what this means. So let us say we declare a variable, and I say world. In here, I will say I'll declare a function called hello. I'll say hello, and in here, let me log out. Now, what closure means is closure is a function that has access to its outer function scope even after the outer function has returned. So that means we have access to the outer scope, right? So the outer scope in this case is variable a, right? So if I just say a and just run this function, so I'll say hello, I got hello world. Great. So arrow functions. Arrow functions are also known as fat arrow functions. They are new and they were introduced in ECMAScript 6. They allow us to write a much more concise syntax for writing the function expressions. They utilize a new token called fat arrow right here. Oh, my mistake. And which makes our code much more concise, and they simplify the function scoping. Okay, so this is your regular function, and this is an arrow function. The good thing about this is we have to write much less code, and it gives us it allows us to achieve developer productivity. So that's it. In this session, we have covered promises, callbacks, arrow functions, as well as we have gone over the conditional statements, as well as loops. So this session is very important in terms of working with the project that we'll be covering in the future session. So make sure you understand these concepts very thoroughly, and I will see you in the next session. Take care. Bye-bye.